What's going on, everybody? I'm hanging out with my good friend, Drew Agnew from the House of Mario podcast to talk a little bit about Gunbrella, which is an indie game from Devolver Digital and Doinksoft that just recently came out on the Nintendo Switch and PC. A game that I really loved, actually. I've played through it twice already. And I don't know, like, I thought this was a good opportunity to not only hang out with Drew, who's one of my favorite people to podcast with, but also to chat about this game and to kind of chew the fat on it a little bit, Drew. Get into spoilers. I want to say I got it big. Yeah. Oh yeah. Chew on that delicious fat. Oh yeah. And we got a big spoiler warning here right out the gate, right out on Front Street. We're going to be talking with no child locks, full spoilers. You have been warned. If you have not played through Gunbrella, turn back now. Or if you just don't care about spoilers. Either way, turn back now. We're going to spoil the hell out of this game and go play it. You should play it. It's really good. Yeah, let's just get into it, man. Drew, tell me about Gunbrella. How'd you like it, man? I saw your Twitter post. It seemed like you had some positive feelings about it, but I'm excited to chat. Talk to me a little bit about Gunbrella, my friend.
Yeah, I really liked Gunbrella. It was a lot of fun. It was sort of a big lead up to the game because for years I've been seeing it at events at PAX Australia. They had like a big Devolver Digital booth, and that was one of the major games they've been showing off. And within like my friend group, a lot of people were sort of super excited about it, and they loved the hands-on with the demo and everything. And when I jumped into it, I actually had no idea. I sort of just knew that it was a gun, like a game where you had a gun and it's an umbrella and you can use it to dash and float around and shoot things. I'm like, cool, that sounds like fun. I thought it might be maybe just like a platformer or something. I really wasn't expecting like an adventure game when I booted it up. I'm like, you're talking to people, you're working out clues of where to go next. There's a big mystery to work out as you're going. I'm like, I wasn't expecting this at all. Like my first sit down. And as the story sort of began to unfold, it sort of just sucked you in more and more as it had like very mature themes and some things. It's got something to say as far as our real world goes as well, which I was not expecting when I was jumping into this really like beautiful pixel art. I thought I was just going in there to shoot some stuff, but there's actually most of it is just walking around and talking and interacting with characters and all that. I would say that's like, at least half of the game, then the other half would be like the combat and platforming and all of that as well. But yeah, definitely, as much as I heard about it, as much as I was looking forward to it, it actually did, kind of surprise me as far as what it actually was. Yeah,
I agree. And I think that, like, especially coming off of some of their Doinksoft's other work, like Gato Roboto, which is a great little, like, sort of monochromatic, cute, fun, short, sweet Metroidvania. I thought that this is going to be much more in line with this, like, kind of a funny, like, concept, sort of like we thought Gunbrella was kind of funny, and so we built a game around it. I didn't really expect so much, like, world building and things it really left me thinking about quite a lot, actually. Like, not only, and I'm sure we'll get into this stuff, but like not only, like what we do to the world around us, but like, the nature of relationships and parental relationships and the way that all sort of unfolds throughout the game is interesting. The multiple endings of the game have left me with a lot to think about too, and it's a little bit more cerebral than I think I was expecting going in. It reminds me, are you a Hotline Miami fan? You ever played those games?
I quite like the first game, but the second game is banned in Australia, so I couldn't play. Oh, for real?
I had no idea.
Yeah, so the second game got banned because it has drugs or something, and I don't know.
No kidding.
It's funny because it's a Devolver game as well, and I actually received a code for the collection on Switch, so 1 and 2 together. I got it in the morning, and it was throughout the day that the classification system must have stepped in and banned it. So if you bought it or received the code or whatever in the first day it was out, you can download it. It's on your account. But I didn't get to it until I was home and I read the email. And classification board already stepped in. So I have not played number 2. But yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Hotline Miami's, fantastic on Vita. That's where I played it.
Hell yeah, Vita. Yeah, I had no idea that was the case. Well, the reason I bring it up is because Gunbrella tonally actually reminds me quite a lot of Hotline Miami. Just that sort of like, and I don't know if it's because the it's like a silent protagonist sort of situation as well, kind of juxtaposed to the like hyper violence, of it, which is true of both games. But like, yeah, it does have a sort of like more cerebral, I think, nature to it when like you're sort of working your way through the game and the game is giving you a little bit to think about, but also like, yeah, like there's like a quietness to it, like juxtaposed to all of the insanity that goes on, because this game like goes places. There's like Lovecraftian eldritch body horror stuff in this game, but like between it all, it's quite it's between all of that, it's quite contemplative and quite quiet, and like this like jazzy little soundtrack underscoring it. And I don't know, I was thinking of Hotline Miami specifically a lot when I was playing. Katana Zero is another one that this reminded me of, kind of in a similar vein, just tonally,
Yeah, honestly, I thought we were going to get Katana Zero. I thought we were going to get like that stage by stage sort of layout, because Katana Zero feels like amazing to play, and I could see like the similarities between how both games feel. But yeah, just where this game goes, like you get to like the first boss or like the first area where you're going into that like cult's hideout, like some just absolutely messed up stuff happens, and it's like Goldenrod, like, oh, I finally found her, and she just
poor
like
Goldenrod
explodes.
R.I.P. Goldenrod.
Like, oh my god! Yeah, at first I was thinking like, did I do something wrong? I'm like, no, that's what happens. Okay, I don't know if you could save her or anything like that. I don't know if there's that much choice throughout the game apart from the ending, but yeah, that was eye-opening anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. There are a couple of points in the game where there are a couple of convergent points, a couple of points of like player choice that will impact certain things. But like for something like that, like Goldenrod, I think always has to die. One of the things I'm actually trying to do, I started up a third playthrough, Drew. And
nice. Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm trying to figure out now is how to afford that golden apple that Scarlet has in the beginning, which costs like $500, which is like for the beginning of the game an absurd amount of money.
Oh, that's massive. I don't know if I ever had that much money. I was just buying bandages every shop.
What I found myself doing is like, as I got into the end of the game, I was blowing all my money on the cogs to upgrade my Gunbrella. And so there would be a couple of times where I would get up to like 700 or 800, but then I would just blow it. But you have a very limited amount of time, because after what happens with Scarlet happens, Scarlet is no longer a shopkeeper. So like you have actually a quite limited window to buy that golden apple from her, and not really enough time, certainly not naturally enough time to get $500. So I think I have found a strategy to do it, and I'm gonna work on it and see how you can pull it off, because I think I found a way to do it kind of easily. And I'm curious if that affects anything, because the golden apple seems to be something related to Scarlet and Goldenrod. Because did you do the side quests with Scarlet at the end in the final part?
I don't think I did. No.
So when you get the like wraith killing ammunition at the end, you can go back to the Colt 45 hideout, and Scarlet is like, hey, kill like 16 wraiths and then come back and talk to me here at the hideout. Because now in like there's a time skip at a certain point, and Scarlet's like a badass like in the future, and she's out for revenge because the wraiths killed her girlfriend or whatever. And she's like, kill 16 of the wraiths and then come back to the hideout and talk to me. And it's actually a really nice moment, because you're both kind of like shooting down a bunch of wraiths, and she realizes that like this isn't doing it. This ain't doing it. This is not the closure that I thought I needed. And eventually, like she kills a wraith, and then she sees Goldenrod's sort of, I don't know, image in one of them, and Goldenrod like appears to her and just drops a golden apple on the floor for her. And that is kind of the moment of closure that she needs. And I'm really curious if that moment changes at all if you have bought the golden apple or not. So
yeah,
it
probably does. She wouldn't have it,
right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
Because I just finished the game, and I'm thinking like, we'll get to this point eventually, but with how Murray dies, I'm like, I wonder if you can live. Like I had no idea that there could be an alternate ending, and I literally go onto YouTube and your video comes up about the alternate ending to the game. I'm like, well, fantastic. So I clicked on there, and a nice little 5-minute video from Seth, and explained it. I'm like, that's awesome. So just like the fact that there's multiple points like that throughout the game, it's just really cool.
Yeah,
like there's that type of choice. I didn't, because I saw that that side quests come up in like your to-do list, and I feel like I couldn't get back that far. The train station was blocked. Did you have to do something to like unblock it to go back there as well?
It blocks you from going back to King Station and like Outer King Station, like the first two. I think it's King Station and Outer King Station. It blocks you from that. But you can go back as far as Orwell, at least.
You could, yeah.
You could go back to Orwell, because not only are you able to go back to the Colt 45 hideout, but you can also go to in Orwell, one of the dudes that I think his name is Eli, that you escaped the prison with. His son, Ollie, is the one that like the grandma in Orwell is like, oh, my little boy, I can't find him, blah, blah, blah. That's his son. And if you go back to Orwell, he'll go back there and he's looking for his son. It's all destroyed and stuff. So you can do a quick little side quest where you kind of save his son as well.
I did that one.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can do that too. So there are a couple little off the beaten path. There's not like a ton of side quests. There's probably less than 10 side quests in the whole game, but like there are a couple of little off the beaten path things. They typically will reward you with half a heart, Yeah. And you'll get some more vitality, which playing on hard mode, you're going to need it. Did you play on hard, or did you play on like normal or easy?
I just played normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be honest, there were some sections I was struggling with. I'm like, this is a little bit tricky in some bits.
Yeah.
Just like, just doing even some platforming where some enemies come out and get you. But I was playing, I mentioned this just a little bit on Twitter, but sometimes when I was using like the dual sticks, I found the controls like a little bit finicky in some ways. It's just sort of me, like my fingers weren't used to jumping with a trigger, then dashing with a bumper and shooting with a with the other trigger, but just using my thumb
and aiming with the stick
on the Switch, like especially on Switch with the Joy-Cons, it just felt like I was really stretching my hands out. Whereas like for the final boss, I was like, I had to dock it. I'm like, I can't do it. I had to dock it and get the Pro Controller out, and then I was not too bad. But yeah, on the actual Switch itself, like it's a little bit harder when you've got to use the triggers and
I could imagine. Sticks. Yeah. I played, it's weird. I played a lot of this game, cause like when the game came out, I did like a launch day stream. I played it for like 3.5 hours. I got like halfway through the game on my first stream of it. And then the rest of it, I was recording myself because I knew I wanted to make some kind of video for it. So I actually played the vast majority of the game docked, which is unusual for me. I typically am like, I don't know, 70-30 handheld. And I actually didn't play much of this one handheld, at least not yet. So that's interesting. I could imagine that though, because the game does sort of ask a lot of you control wise. Like they do take up a lot of the sort of real estate, and then they tie like the items to the D-pad as well. So you can't use I don't know if it's like old head energy or something, but in games like these, I like to move with the D-pad. So I always would like accidentally start shuffling between my items because I wanted to move with the D-pad. And I do almost wish that it had adopted like a like I'm thinking of like a BioShock or a Half-Life scheme where like you could bring up like a wheel or something to select your items, because I did find myself struggling with that sometimes. Like especially in the heat of battle, where it's like, oh, I need to switch to my wraith killing ammo, and now I need to go back to my normal ammo, and I'm just like kind of frantically pressing down to like get to the ammo I want. So yeah, I struggled with that too.
I just took the long way just to be safe. I went I went to the pause menu. I went over to the different ammo types. I selected it, then unpaused it. Yeah, I just went for that. Like, yeah, look, because even like using like healing items and stuff, you know, you got to hold in the bumper, but then it's sort of like it takes a while to kick in.
Right.
Like, yeah, I was like, find a nice little safe place and like, use a bandage because
you can do that in the pause menu too. I didn't know that. That's cool.
No, but yeah, I just find like a safe place.
Oh,
just like away from the enemies. Yeah,
little cubby.
But yeah. That's the only time where I was sort of, you know, using the D-pad or anything like that.
Smart.
But I kind of on Switch, I really wish I had like, you know, this like these back paddles that like the PlayStation controller has, or the Xbox controller. I reckon that would have solved my problems. Like, you know, having your thumbs on the sticks, then your trigger buttons with the index finger, then you can use the bumpers just on the bottom. I reckon that would have helped me out a bit.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think so too. The game does have like, it is kind of, it has a lot going on. You know, there are a lot of like little things floating around in there that you have to kind of keep up with. And I do like though, one thing that is I think a big strength of the game is like you can tell that they paid a lot of like design consideration to the Gunbrella, like just how much stuff the Gunbrella can do. Like, not only is it this like short to mid-range shotgun, not only is it like a shield, not only is it a parry, not only is it a dash, not only is it your double jump, not only is it a zip line, you know, like it's got like so much that the thing does, you know, like just in this one thing, very Nintendo-ish. I think like Nintendo does that where they like to bake a lot of use cases, no unitaskers in a Nintendo game. And the Gunbrella is certainly not a unitasker. I liked that a lot. It's, if you're going to name your game Gunbrella, then you better be damn sure the Gunbrella feels good. And it does. So
like everything, I think especially like when you use it as a parasol and you're floating down, and the way you can maneuver as you're coming down as well, it just feels awesome. Like it feels like, you know, you are the weight, but then you sort of maneuver around, you know, your umbrella portion. It feels really good. And I love the dash as well. You use that all the time. You just like, even if you're just like trying to go to the next screen, you just like jump dash, jump dash.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it feels awesome.
Yeah, I was doing that too. It felt kind of Celeste-ish to me in that way. Like a little Celeste DNA in the actual platforming, like in the actual movement. I felt a little bit of Celeste in there, certainly. And I think the game like feels really incredible. And I had heard some early impressions from the PAXs and the trade shows and stuff of people talking about the movement, but actually getting your hands on it and like wrapping your mind around it, it feels great. And there are a couple of like pretty intense boss fights and things that are a little bit demanding, but I still found myself really enjoying it. I found myself cheesing some of the boss fights actually. There was, not even intentionally, but the boss fight against his name's Dregs, the big buff scrapper guy that you wind up fighting. I learned like kind of accidentally that you can just dash into him and it stuns him for a second, and then you can pop off a shot. You just do that over and over again. And like like he never touched me. Like I just like backed him into a corner and just stun locked him. And I just did that. There are a couple bosses you could do that to.
Yeah, there's a few bosses where I died like again and again. And I thought, you know, the game does a good point of giving you a save before the boss, and you just jump straight back in, and it doesn't have a cutscene or anything too, which is nice, especially for the last boss where I was. It took me a couple of tries.
Yeah,
but I feel like most of the bosses were pretty cool. Like I think like the main one, like the baby at the very start.
Yeah,
that's like a big tone setter for the game. Just being, what the hell is this? When you see like it all just starting to form together, and before you've got context of anything else that's happening in the game, I was just thinking, what
like, what are these people doing? Because you can kind of get a sense for like Cult 45, which is a great name, by the way. Cult 45 for the cult. What a name. Hell of a name. I love a good name, Drew. And that's a good name. And like they're sitting there like sacrificing like good-hearted people for something. But like what's interesting is like the game actually positions two religions in it. You've got Cult 45 with like this character Mama who has like, there's like baby, I think one of them is like nephew, is like named nephew or cousin or something like that. They all have like familial names, which is interesting. But then the other religion of the game is this like Church of the Sun, you know, sort of thing with like Father Wormwood. They have a name. Is it the Sun Followers or something like that? There's a name. Yeah.
It's definitely the Sun something. Some Followers.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Sun something. Yeah.
I feel like that they were fascinating because they were like converts of Cult 45.
Right.
I thought that was awesome how like, you know, basically like the other side of the coin, but you know, they're doing their own deeds that, you know, depending on how you perceive them, aren't all that holy either. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was like a really cool thing to touch on, where you got this group that are clearly doing evil things and it's obvious. But then like throughout the game when like you meet the father and you you know, you sort of hear from him and you get your mission and you continue on. But later in the game you sort of, you know, some more things unravel and you work it out from there. It was really cool. And I think one of my favorite moments in the game was where you're trying to get Marie back, try and save her from jail.
Mm-hmm.
And like the way I forgot the name of the character now. He's one of the scrappers. If you remember his name, I can't quite remember, but he basically said, "Let's play it Russian roulette." And one of the characters just unloads their clip except for one bullet, just pops it. Said, "Nah, all right, your turn." Just hands in the gun and just goes and shoots him. I'm like, whoa, that was, you know, that's pretty smart, really.
Yeah.
Just really outwitted him.
Yeah. That's actually a moment that is also divergent. So, that moment can be different depending on who. So if you kill Dregs in the fight with Dregs, then that character, I forget his name. But yeah, the character who lets you in with the marbles and stuff like that, he winds up kind of taking Dregs's spot. And he's much more like timid and he's much more like, I guess, logical. So he says when you get to the point where the Sun people, the Sun cult or whatever are like, hey, let's make a negotiation. We have their leader. We will trade her back in exchange for their like super weapon, their gun, this hole puncher thing that they have. Because they want to go and take down Avalon, which is this sort of utopian super society, and they want to take that down and blah, blah, blah. And it's interesting because if Dregs survives the fight with them, because he'll tell you like, kill me now, go ahead and kill me, but you can just walk away. You don't even have to kill him. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, bang. I just shot him on the bed.
Yeah. But if you don't kill him, he survives. And he stays at the position he's at, and that situation actually goes quite differently. Where Dregs will say, like, because Dregs is the opposite. He's not the logical planner. He's like, let's just go in and wreck shop. He's like, let's just go in guns blazing and bust her out of there. So it becomes like a little bit different. The end result is the same, but like that character, that like sidekick character Francine, she still dips out and she's still like, hey, I have no quarrel with you or whatever. But Dregs like pins him up against the wall and like beats the crap out of him and stuff. And the end result of that moment is the same, but it does change tonally depending on that little moment in the game, which is cool. I really like that. There, a couple little things like that. What was interesting to me about the way they handled the religions and the cults and stuff is that Cult 45, even though we see that like that character that gets like killed by Dregs or the other guy or whatever, who becomes like a leader in the Sun cult or whatever, he was a Cult 45 convert that you see like earlier in the game, and a lot of them are Cult 45 converts. But it's fascinating that one of those religions has physical evidence of what they believe in being real, and one of them doesn't. Right? We never see anything about the Sun cults like believing in something that is real. Cult 45 does. We see it. It's a physical, whatever it is they're doing, it's gross and it's messed up and it's bad, but it's real, you know? And like, that's kind of, I think a theme of the game is like, are you willing to accept uncomfortable truths? Like things that are true, but like, it's not good. Are you willing to sort of blind yourself to a truth that is not pleasant? You know? And that's sort of what we see from them. Like the Sun cult is this like this church of people who are sort of believing in like reclamation of the world's resources and stuff like this, but we don't see any actual evidence of what they believe in. Cult 45 is a horrible, dangerous cult who are sacrificing innocent people, but what they're doing has tangible, you know, outcomes to it. So it's a really interesting juxtaposition, I feel like, of it's kind of like real religion, you know, it's kind of how it is. Like there's no tangible in real life, you know, regardless of what you believe, if you're spiritual, if you're religious or not, like it's faith-based, you know? And I thought that was a really fascinating little dichotomy there between the two of them. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, because like when you've actually see physical beings pop up that you got to shoot and all that, is sort of like it's like a very real threat to you, especially like as a player when you're playing in the game. And I guess with like the sun worshippers, do they have any correlation to like the climate change sort of aspects that the game tackles? Do they have any regards to that? Because there's a lot of thing about like you know, when it comes to like I guess like the resources being used up, the game touches a lot on all of that. I think they have some aspect to do with that, but yeah, there's no real sort of like threat like to you as the player. It's just you sort of observing it and being like, yeah, that looks pretty bad, and you can see, you know, the real Earth getting to that point one day if we continue down the track we're going. So it definitely has a message there where they're trying to get the, you know, their thoughts out about that. But yeah, I thought that was a really interesting part too. Just the whole like the climate change aspect when it started, really touching on how like just the resources and all of that. No, it's pretty full on, especially towards the end where like you saw just like the consequences of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it doesn't take long. One of the things I really like about this game is it never makes a judgment call. Because you're playing this game through like the lens of Murray, who, you know, the game opens the way it does. It becomes this like revenge tale, and he doesn't give a shit about anything other than his daughter at that point. Like that's the only thing that he cares about, point blank, period. And so he doesn't like, he doesn't make a judgment call because he doesn't care about anything else. And so because of that, the game never makes a judgment call. The game never tells you this thing bad, this thing good necessarily. Everything is kind of bad. And when it comes to, the resources and the climate change and stuff, there is this resource called crude that that is being mined, and there is a finite amount of resource. The Father Wormwood is sort of like, hey, like these things are like the dead is sort of coming into this. And at a certain point, like if we're mining this stuff, then where does the dead have to go anymore? And that's where you see the wraiths come out, and it kind of creates this like apocalypse that Avalon, this little utopia, is kind of saving themselves from. And it doesn't take long. That's another thing I really like, is it doesn't take long for that to happen. It's only like 3 years. Like we sort of start the game on the brink of that collapse, and then, you know, the Murray gets captured and they put him in jail. And then all it takes is 3 years from then for total just annihilation of the world around you, which is really interesting and wild. And it's like the sort of heel turn that like, it's scary to think about, but like, yeah, in the real world, like if we aren't careful, if we're just sort of like greedily mining this place for all it's worth, like it's going to turn quick, you know? And the game lets you think about that. So I like that.
So I don't want to have all these spirits flying around. Maybe we should slow things down. Everybody play. Get all the corporates to play Gunbrella. That's like, oh no, boys, stop the presses. We need to
better
calm
halt that
down.
mining operation. Good God.
Yeah, no, just play this game by Doinksoft, and oh God, it's changed my perspective. But that part where you get captured and it just is like 3 years later. When I was playing, I was like, whoa, like that sucks to be the idea of being captured for that long.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's one of those moments. Just like I really shouldn't have followed Max down here. This was a mistake following that man down here, and it was smart on the gamer's perspective, being able to show you like this is what's happened in between, and you go back to seeing the towns just being destroyed and how the characters have progressed, and especially like with your daughter, her being a baby when you start the game allows her to age up and like as a dad, I found that's probably the part of the game I felt really sad about. It's like this dad who's lost his family, and you go on to get your daughter. Like you just go, you would be going through so much. Just I could understand not being worried about really anything else around him. You're just there to use your umbrella to get revenge. Which man, it was pretty tough themes. Like there's a lot going on when it comes to the story. Whether like you're a dad, you're someone who's interested in like the religious aspects or the global aspects. This game touched on way more than I thought it ever would.
Yeah. Oh, big time. Yeah. You don't come into this thinking that you're going to be talking about religion and like climate change and what it means to be a parent and family and things. And I was curious because like you are a dad and I'm not, and I'm always fascinated to see how these things hit you and the sort of takeaways, because this game, I think, taps into a little bit of the similar themes to like The Last of Us or something, where it's sort of like these things that you do out of love are done beyond good and evil, and like it doesn't matter, nothing else matters, only my kid matters, and blah blah blah. And everything that Murray does, he's doing to his wife is killed at the beginning of the game, the daughter is kidnapped, and everything is just in the service of getting his daughter back, and doing it with like the murder weapon is just beautiful noir poetry. I just love it. Yeah. But like when you get to her, and like Max has effectively been raising her this entire time, and she doesn't see him as like dad, even though he wants her to. She knows, I think innately, because she still calls him Max. So she does kind of like innately know that he is not her dad. But when you do take down Max and rescue her, she's like, who are you? Like, she's like, I don't know who this guy is. I just see he's just this gun-toting maniac that has burst through into Avalon and, and has just like killed this dude that I've grown up with in front of me. And that's your daughter. She has no idea who you are. And the game does have two endings, and one of them, Murray effectively takes this like final shot from Max. As Max is dying, he like shoots like a missile, like a nuke kind of at Murray, and Murray takes it and dies. And that leaves the daughter, who I believe is named Georgia. And Georgia is basically having to live out the rest of her life being raised by the people that you've met throughout your journey, kind of just by herself. If you hang on to the gem that you can get at the beginning of the game, totally missable optional thing, but if you hang on to that for one reason or another, it saves you and allows Murray to live with his daughter and be alive. And he's there raising her, but he's very much the overbearing, overprotective father, where you see the same vignettes of Georgia sort of having these little moments with people, but then he walks in and he's always there standing over her shoulder. And the final shot of the game is Georgia gardening on the rooftop with Father Wormwood. And in the ending where Murray dies, you just see his spirit sort of peacefully gardening alongside her, even though she can't see. And in the ending where Murray doesn't die, he's there with the gun aimed at Father Wormwood. And I love that, like, neither one of those are the good ending, really. And I'm curious what your take on that as a father, like how you sort of pass through that kind of like, is it better to be alive so that you know that your daughter is protected, or even though it means that you're going to be this overbearing, overprotective person who is maybe causing damage to your relationship with her, damage to her as a person potentially, or to die, you know, in that sort of final act for her, but not knowing how she's going to wind up going through life after that point. It's, I think, like an impossibly hard quandary. So I'm curious what your take is on that.
Yeah. With the situation with Max, just the idea of like, you know, who is that just saying to her own father? That was something for me where I'm like, oh man, that sucks. Yeah. Like I was there, you know, on the couch next to my partner, and I was just on the Switch, being like, oh, like, you know, I sort of like cringed and like held my chest to it. Like that would be the most difficult thing I think I could ever go through. Like, you know, just, you know, your own kid being like, who are you? It was like, man,
after all you went through too. Yeah.
But I think it quite quickly, you know, turns into a situation that's good for Murray, where, you know, obviously she doesn't have a relationship that's good with Max. Max is abusive, and she just goes straight towards Murray and hides behind him because she feels something at least. She might not know who he is, but she does feel that is somebody that she can trust and will protect her. And like the last boss kicks in, she jumps on his back. I'm like, that is awesome. I love that little touch.
Yes.
So it does turn in his favor. But when I was watching the alternate ending where Murray lives, just with your video, I was looking very closely at all the differences. I'm like, it looks very much the same. It's just like, you know, Murray is also there. And I think like a lot of the shots, it's fine. But like that shot that you mentioned with Father Wormwood, where he's got the gun out, I was looking at it. I'm like, why is he aiming the gun at him? And I guess it's because like the same conclusion you came to, where he's like overbearing. But it's a weird person to pick to be overbearing on and just be aiming it at him, because a lot of the other characters, he is just there.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess with her age and the situation of like the world, he probably should be. If she's only like 3, I guess he should be overbearing. And like, you know, if somebody that he doesn't trust that much, he's got the gun out. Because I can relate to that. Like, you know, my son's a year and a half old. It's like, yeah, well, you know, you've got to have your eye out all the time. You've got to always, you know, people out there with bad intentions and all that. And he knows very well, because he lived through that. He lost his wife. He lost his kid for, you know, that 3 years. So he's got every reason to do that in some ways. And I don't disagree with him whatsoever. Because, yeah, if I got my kid back after that, I'll be like, all right, it's my mission in life to protect you. Mm-hmm. And I'll probably do the same thing. It's just strange why Father Wormwood, it's not like he's got the gun out all the time. If it was just like every shot was just like her in the tinkerer's shop, he's got the gun out pointing towards the tinkerer. Yeah. He's like, she's in the garden, gun's out. You know, the gun isn't always out. So that was just something, don't know. I wonder what they're trying to put across with that in particular.
Yeah.
But, no, it was interesting. Just, the differences. And I love that small change too, just with the gem. Like, you hold on to the gem, and then it's the bit that saves your life. I love like how this game just crosses over. And for the most part, I just had my experience, but being able to have this conversation with you and be able to figure out, like, you know, what happened in other side quests that I missed, and what happens if you save someone or you let someone die. Because in particular, when I shot that person at the start of the game, that's when I was still like learning the game. I didn't realize there was going to be choices at all. So yeah, he just said, kill me. I'm like, yeah, look, I'm playing a game where I'm just shooting stuff. So I shot him.
Right. Yeah.
And it wasn't until after I'm like, could I have not? I guess I could have. And I just continued on with the game. But who did you give the gem to, just out of curiosity? I'm just interested, because I gave it to like the traveling merchant, because he was right there. And also he said he'd give me a discount. I'm like, well, I need to buy bandages because, I'm not that professional at playing this video game. So I'll get a discount on the health. But honestly, I don't think I did get a discount.
No.
They're like $50, like before and after. So I got duped. I got duped something bad.
I did the same on my first playthrough. I gave it to the merchant because it was the promise of a discount, and I think that is like a lesson learned too, right? Of like, well, I guess I shouldn't have trusted him because
I know I shouldn't have trusted him. I really because he just said they make it that obvious, but he's just a scammy bastard.
Yeah,
but I still did it because it wasn't just a discount. It was just the fact that I didn't have to go down to the sewers and go out of my way. It's just a bit of laziness on my behalf too, I think.
Yeah. So if you give it to him, he promises you a discount and doesn't give you one. You just bump into him later after the apocalypse. He just sets up shop in Allendale, and he's got like, it's like ridiculous. Like he's like the one, I guess, civilized business anymore in Allendale, and he's got like a tiger, just like ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
And doesn't give you the discount that he's promised. If you give it to Seward, all that really happens is that he will like cook your critters for free. He'll actually do it though. And what's funny, like even that is like an interesting like sort of comparison. Like we mentioned like the juxtaposition of like the truth versus the faith of the religious sects in the game. Even this is like one of them is telling you something that is true. It's not as good, but the other one is straight up lying to you, And so like you and I both on our first playthrough bought into the lie, which is like an interesting thing. And if you don't give it to either one of them, that's how you get the alternate ending. If you hang on to the gem for yourself and choose, I guess, greed ultimately.
Yeah, that's a strange lesson. Like with you're always so good at like finding the meaning in things, but with this in particular, it's like, what is the meaning here?
Right?
Is it the fact that it's like if you find if you find something really nice and valuable, don't give it away. Make sure you hold on to it because you might get shot in the chest, and that's where you got to keep your stone.
Yeah, because that's what I was curious about. Like, is it that the stone has some sort of mystical element? Is it that this gem provides like immortality or something more than like monetary value, more than just like this is a big pretty diamond? Because otherwise, like, why does the homeless guy care to have it? If it's just for money, like, why does he care? The merchant, it makes sense. He wants to sell it and blah, blah, blah. But like, why would Seward want it? And why would Colt 45 want it if all it was monetary value? So like my read on it was that it had some sort of magical property to it, but I don't know. The game never says, and like, in a way, I kind of like that the game never says. Like, it reminds me of like the Pulp Fiction thing, where it's like, what was in Vincent's suitcase, right? And it's like, they never tell you what it was, and like, I kind of like leaving that up to the player's imagination. There's a lot of different interpretations you can take with it. And I think I wanted to quickly circle back to what you were saying about the ending too, because that I think has a lot of different ways you can read it as well. My read on his overbearingness and stuff and why he was sort of aiming the gun at Father Wormwood but not others is because he trusted them at least slightly more, but he was like, you are not ever going to be out of my sight ever again. Like, he's like, this is not happening. And in fact, the game does make a point to show one scene, just one, where Murray is not present if he leaves, and she runs off and sneaks off with, I think it's Ollie, the other little kid, into the Colt 45 hideout. And one of the cultists comes out and scares them and they run off. And so it almost like the game is almost kind of saying like, this is what happens when he's not there, and like I really love how the game presents all of this of like, like, was it worth it? And is this the right thing to do? Because he's not wrong either. The second she does go out of his sight, this is what happens, so there's a lot to sort of pick apart there. And yeah, that theming with the gem of like, don't take anything at face value and don't trust anybody. And, you know, and sort of like, I guess, self-evaluating, like, should you just believe everybody in this world that just tells you what, you know, what you're going to get if you help them, you know? Game gives you a lot to think about, man.
It really does, yeah. Going into it, I thought I was just going to be dashing around and shooting stuff, but yeah, after I shot my first person, I'm like, yeah, that's all. It's all a bit heavier than I thought.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd be having these sort of conversations about fatherhood and the state of the world and all of this type of thing, but none of that. They've done an absolutely fantastic job. Like, I can see why you're on your third playthrough. I can see myself going back and trying some different things too, because like you mentioned this at the start or even before we started recording, but it's not like you can just like look this stuff up for the most part, because a lot of people aren't playing it. Like it's gone under the radar a fair bit. So this would be like a fantastic game to finish once. To be like, oh look, you talk to a bunch of people like we are now, and like what were their decisions? How did they play the game? But there aren't really that many answers, and that kind of adds a little bit to the mysticism as well, which is pretty cool.
That's right. Yep.
Because really on like launch weekend of Zelda or one of these bigger games, Starfield even, you could ask people like, oh, what planet did you go to? What shrine did you do first? You know, try and figure out stuff that's in the game that you're not that familiar with. But yeah, like for me, if it wasn't for your video, I would have been like, don't know, I guess you can you can live somehow, maybe. That'd be nice, but I really don't know. I would have just had my one playthrough and you know, just went on my way. But being able to do this and be able to figure it all out is pretty cool. And anybody that's listening to this too, I'm sure a lot of people might be like, oh, really? Like just all the stuff you're saying. It's no, it's really cool how they are able to fit this in like this relatively tight, you know, 6 to 8 hour story game as well.
Yeah. It's short. I actually, it was funny. My first playthrough was right around 7 hours. Which is what I had heard. Like I had heard it was about that long. I think it's perfect. I don't think the game overstays its welcome at all. I think it's paced really, really well. Like there's never like a moment of like looking at your watch, like, okay, this is going on a bit too long. I think the pacing is perfect. And personally, like for me, I love like a tight, you're in, you're out, 5, 6, 7 hours. Chef's kiss. I love
Chef's
it.
Kiss. Yeah, yes.
Yes,
we almost jinxed
Chef's
each other.
Kiss.
I
love it. But on my second playthrough, now when I sort of knew what I was doing, I was able to play through the game very quickly, like 3 hours.
All right, yeah, smash it.
If you know what if you know what to do, if you know how to get around, especially like on my second playthrough, because I was mostly doing it because I wanted to see not only the alternate ending, but I wanted to see like the way the different choices like changed the outcome of the game. I just cranked it down to easy and just blitzed through that game in like 3.5 hours. So there's quite it's pretty scalable too, which I appreciate. I think most people though will get through the game in like between 6 and 8 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't count it, but my Switch just says 5 or more at the moment. So yeah, it's right in that range. And I was sort of thinking to myself, because I heard those estimates as well for how long it takes. I'm like, oh god, I hope I don't take 9 hours or something, because I was failing a couple of areas a couple of times. I'm like, oh god, yeah. So don't make me take longer than the average, please. I'll be embarrassed.
I will say too, I started up a hard mode playthrough just to see kind of the differences, and having played the game on all 3 of the difficulties, it's a little bit interesting the way the game handles difficulty, because the enemies take more shots, first of all. So like even the standard like cultists that you normally just charge through with 1 shot, they take 2 shots now. So that's something. The amount of damage you take is the same. I was curious how that was going to work, because I was like, well, if I'm just taking a hit, it's a heart. No matter what difficulty you play on, that is true. But it's really like the way the enemies behave. that makes the game more difficult. So on hard, not only do they have more health and take more shots, but their behaviors change a little bit. So like, for example, early on in the game, there are frogs who like spit out bubbles, and like the bubbles can hurt you or whatever. You can block them and shoot them and stuff, but the bubbles will hurt you. On normal or easy, they're kind of just occasionally shooting. On hard, they're like a stream of bubbles on the frogs. And like, I actually noticed that a couple of the boss fights had stages or patterns that were only available on other difficulties. So on my easy playthrough, the boss fight, I think it's the second to last boss fight against the like parasol gunman captain, the one that reveals like the test tube in Avalon with their growing people in there. We didn't even mention that. Yeah, they're like,
that's messed up.
They're like growing people to sacrifice because they've run out of the crude resource. So like now that that's gone, they have to find some other way to generate souls, to generate people to fuel what they have going on, which is interesting. And anyways, that boss fight against that dude, he didn't do any of his like other phases on easy. Just the standard, he just jumps up and shoots. That's all he did on easy. So that was interesting to see.
He just sat there, you're like bang, bang, bang.
Oh
bang.
yeah, just take him out. It was kind of neat. And the big enemy, I don't think it is actually named, but the one that you fight in the mine shaft, that giant one where you're on the elevators, he's got a couple of different phases too. And on easy, I don't think I saw him ever send out bees. Like he just did those little bubbles that he sends out, but he didn't actually send out any bees, I don't believe. So on easy mode, they'll only do like their first phase or whatever. So
yeah. That elevator one was interesting because you can't fall. You can't like fall down. You just like bounce on the bottom. Because when that happened, I'm like, oh, that's handy. I thought I was just going to fall, but I was doing all these like maneuvers with the Gunbrella, like floating and all that, just make sure I don't fall down. But then I must have messed up and went doop doop at the bottom of the screen. I'm like, oh, okay, well this is handy. I can just hang out here, until they send the bees or whatever. But yeah,
I love that fight though.
Yeah, the boss fights were a lot of fun for the most part. I can't think of any bad ones. I quite enjoyed the one where you verse that turret, the weapon, where you use the Gunbrella to reflect the missiles and that. I thought that was great. I thought that was cool because you basically just learn like really how to like deflect, gun bullets that aren't just like the straight lines from the turrets.
Mm-hmm.
You sort of, you're given like tutorials that aren't tutorials just before then, which I thought was pretty cool. And like it feels really satisfying smacking those missiles back. Just in the big explosion, see that health bar go down by God knows how many hit points and stuff. It's awesome.
I really like a lot. I was disappointed, and I understand why the game did this, but they don't ever let you fight Mama. Mama dies kind of by accident.
That's hilarious. And it was very funny. That was worth
it. it was funny. There's a part of me that was hoping that I could fight her because I was looking forward to the fight. I was like, oh, this is going to be badass. We're going to be fighting on the back of this train. Hell yeah. But like, it was a funny moment of hubris. And I guess just another commentary on religion on the part of the developers. But where like she says like, bow to me, kneel to me. And Murray does. But really, he's just ducking because the tunnel is coming for the train. And so in her sort of hubris and reveling in the moment, she winds up smacking against it doesn't even really make sense physics-wise because she was floating, so she wouldn't really have any of the momentum of the train. So
yeah,
but
I guess if you're floating, are you in the air or are you still locked onto the ground but you're levitating? Like how do the levitating physics work in like the supernatural world? Because you can imagine like you're locked onto a circle on the ground, but then you're just rising above it.
Right.
So she's locked onto that part of the train rather than just
is she orienting to the gravity of the train? Yeah. Maybe.
So I guess that's what happened.
I guess so. It's the only thing that makes sense. Yeah. But it was funny. It was funny either way. But
I think in a lot of ways that character is actually kind of underdeveloped in some ways. Like she shows up a couple of times, being like, ha 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 ha, like like, the big evil queen type of thing. But then as she dies, I'm like, cool, and that was amusing. It's kind of like you're getting ready for a boss fight, but it's just splat like a bug, and you move on to the next section. But I didn't really feel that much feeling towards it, like good or bad. It's just like, it's just a typical bad guy for this cult, and she shows up a couple of times, but yeah, as far as like her motives and all of that, there was nothing really behind it.
Right. I agree. Yeah. There are a couple characters. I think most of the characters feel fairly fleshed out, even though, like, because the game is so short, a lot of characters don't get like a ton, to do. But I think for the most part, the game strikes a good balance of like giving them enough to do, giving you enough of a sense of who these characters are while still making it sort of fit inside of its concise runtime. But that character in particular, Mama, like, yeah, she shows up. Typically, she summons like whatever the boss that you're gonna fight, and then she kind of dies. You don't even really get that many interactions with Cult 45 themselves to get exposition about her by way of them, really. Now, you do, if you read the books on the bookshelves, you can kind of get a little bit of backstory and flavor of Cult 45 or whatever, like the sort of books that they're reading. You can get a little bit of that from there. There is also, I know they made a digital comic for Gunbrella that I've not read, but I would be fascinated to know what's in that. So I'll be really curious to see that. But there was her character, and then that Francine character who was in the Sun cult, who is just there at the end, but you can tell that she's got something more going on. She's like, I've got no quarrel with you. I think that we're like after the same thing. I'm just going to stand out of your way. And like, she doesn't really do anything other than assist you, and like, she just backs off. But like, I'm fascinated to know like what her end game was. Clearly she wants to take down Avalon just like everybody else, but like, she does not care to be an active participant in it. She is just going to watch from the sidelines, give you your key, and let you do your thing. So I wanted to see more from her too. There were a couple of characters that I thought were a little underdeveloped. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's like pretty rare too, because like most of the characters that actually do like a fantastic job of just showing their character and the backstory and everything. It's just, that one in particular just stands out because it's like at the start of the game, very noticeable. Just one of the most messed up scenes of putting together the baby. It's like, what the? So okay, but then it sort of like it happens again, and then she dies. That was sort of it. But yeah, maybe I would be satisfied if I could, because I remember reading those books, but I don't remember I can't remember exactly what they said. But yeah. Because I was making the effort to like sit it down and read them and all of that, but I just remember the ones like the tutorial ones sort of pointing out what to do and making a joke of it, breaking the fourth wall. They're the ones I remember. And I thought that was pretty amusing.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of them are just, it's because it's like, especially in the Hideout, like a lot of the books are sort of just Cult 45 doctrine. Just this is sort of the things that we believe, and like, sort of like the sacrificing of innocent souls and like stuff like that. But it doesn't go too hard in the paint with it. I would have liked a little bit more, I guess, exposition on the part of the cult. But I mean, I'm hopeful. This by far, I mean, I actually didn't play Doinksoft's. They made a game called Demon Throttle, which is like a physical only game, which was really funny. It's like a the tagline was like, physical only. Like it's like never digital. It's only ever going to be released physically. It's called Demon Throttle, I believe, and it's like a sort of, I think, like Wild West like shooter, sort of like a Pocky and Rocky sort of thing.
Okay, I'm looking at it now. Yeah. On Switch. Yep.
Yeah, but you can't get it digitally. You can only get it physically, which is an interesting little like gimmick. I really want to get it and play it because it's the only one of their games now that I haven't played. But especially compared to Gato Roboto, Gunbrella is by far the most fleshed out sort of world that they've created. And to that end, I really hope we get a sequel. I really hope we get more. If it does live on as like it was cool to learn that they had done a digital comic, because this fits perfectly as a comic. And however they continue this world and this story, if it's with another game, if it's with a comic, whatever, I do want to see more of it. Like I did really enjoy this game's like world, and I did enjoy what it had to say, and I do hope we get to see more of it. And I hope people play it. I want to see this game do well. It deserves to do well. So
me too. And like what you said about the comic, I'm very keen to go read that now, because the story, like the whole, I guess, universe or whatever you want to call like this game is set up, is actually like very impressive for, like an indie studio. Well, I guess they're not really indie, being, Devolver Digital, but, sort of a publisher like this, and the type of game that it is, it didn't need to be like this in depth when it comes to the characters, the story, the lore around it, all the themes they tackle. It didn't need to be that. It could have just been like a 2D platformer.
Right.
Like it could have been that, and I think it would have gotten great reviews. Just been, it's this really fun 2D platformer where you've got this gun and an umbrella and you use it to float and traverse and get around. But it's still like, it's that, but it's wrapped in this adventure game setting where everything about it is just really intriguing. And just the fact that we've been talking about it for an hour, and it's just
I did not expect us to talk about it for an hour. How crazy is that, man?
Yeah, it's awesome. And like what I've learned just talking to you, just all like the different paths you can take, and I found it fascinating, just like learning like what could have happened in my playthrough if I did things a little bit differently. And unless like you're playing like Mass Effect or something like that, a lot of games don't do that, let alone this one. But it's been I'm glad I played it. It's definitely a game that's been worth playing in 2023, even though that it's stacked.
Yeah, for sure. Like I get it. The year is, this year is crazy. Like no doubt about it. But this is one that, like, there have been a couple of little games like this for me where, like, despite everything, I understand the year is crazy, but in spite of all of it, this one still stands out to me. And especially having this conversation with you has even further elevated my opinion of it. I really enjoy it. I hope people play it. Drew, you're right. We have somehow been talking about Gunbrella for over an hour, so I won't take up any more of your time. But I want people, I'll have links in the video and in the episode description for all of Drew's stuff. You should all be listening to the House of Mario if you're a Nintendo fan. Drew does a fantastic Nintendo podcast called the House of Mario. Support him on Patreon. I'll have full links to everything, Drew. Thanks so much for your time, dude. I really appreciate it, man.
Nah, anytime, man. I love any excuse to jump on and have a chat with you, and just get some education on what the hell happens in Gunbrella. And I got that, so very much appreciated. Thank you very much for having me, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, cool. Guys, play Gunbrella if you've made it this far. If you've listened to a spoiler cast and not played it yet, that hopefully we didn't like ruin it for you too much. You should play it. And if you have played it, tell your friends to play it. It's already getting kind of slept on. And again, support Drew. Check out his stuff. Links in the description. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.